Good afternoon, everyone. Respected dignitaries, esteemed speakers, distinguished participants, and dear colleagues. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the valedictory session of the International Conference on Voices Unbound, Exploring New Frontiers in Language, Literature, and Psychology. Over the past 2 days, we have witnessed an enriching confluence of ideas, perspectives, and scholarly discussions that have truly broadened our horizons. First and foremost, I extend a warm welcome to the chief guest of our valedictory function, Dr. Meena Kandasamy, poet and activist, for gracing this occasion with her esteemed presence. I also warmly welcome our Dean, Vice Principal, Head of the Department, my dear colleagues, and all the enthusiastic participants who have contributed to the success of this conference. This conference was conceived as a platform to delve into the evolving dimensions of language, literature, and psychology, fields that continue to shape and influence our understanding of the human experience. We are delighted to see how this gathering has sparked insightful debates, fostered interdisciplinary collaboration, and inspired innovative thought. I take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to our eminent keynote speakers, session chairs, and presenters whose contributions have been the cornerstone of this conference success. Your expertise and commitment have illuminated new pathways for academic exploration and professional practice. To our participants, your active engagement and thought-provoking questions have made this event vibrant and interactive. It is your enthusiasm that keeps the spirit of learning alive and thriving. As we move into this concluding session, let us celebrate the knowledge we have gained and the connections we have built. On behalf of the Department of English and Other Foreign Languages, Faculty of Science and Humanities, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, I extend my warmest thanks to everyone who has made this conference possible: the organizing committee, volunteers, and technical teams. Your tireless efforts behind the scenes have ensured the seamless execution of this event. Without further delay, let us commence the valedictory session. I now hand over these proceedings to the MC desk to take it forward. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Once again, I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for your warm welcome. Now I call upon Mrs. Jacinthal Mary, Assistant Professor, Department of EFL, to introduce the chief guest to us.
Thank you, madam. Respected dignitaries, dear organizers, beloved participants, and my dear colleagues, good afternoon to one and all present here. Please join with me in welcoming our esteemed guest of the day, Madam Dr. Meena Kandasamy, a sensational writer, poet, novelist, activist, and a great academician. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh. She has authored many great novels and translated many famous books. Her dynamism in writing is illustrated through her essays and non-fiction too. If I start reading her entire collection of books, this session would not be enough. It is true that Madam Meena Kandasamy is undoubtedly a great literary icon of the contemporary literary scenario. On behalf of the Department of English and Foreign Languages, of Faculty of Science and Humanities, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Ramapuram, Chennai, I would like to extend a warm and cordial welcome to our esteemed guest, Dr. Meena Kandasamy. Madam, we are really fortunate to have you with us today, this evening. Thank you so much for joining with us and gracing this occasion. Hearty welcome once again, madam. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. It is indeed my privilege to welcome the resource person of this evening. Hearty welcome to Dr. Meena Kandasamy. Over to the resource person now. Thank you.
Hi, it's my turn to talk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
oh,
ma'am.
lovely. Sorry, I'm not able to see myself on the screen. That's normal. Okay, thank you, Kavita ma'am, Jacinthal Mary ma'am, and everyone for having me here.
Thank you.
So I was thinking of what to speak to you, and when I saw the conference brochure, And then it said exploring new frontiers in language, literature, psychology. So I wanted to actually do something quite interesting. I don't normally do this in conferences, but because we are doing a Zoom session, I thought it's quite interesting to actually talk about some of my own work by, I think, possibly using the screen share option and trying to show what I have been doing, in terms of an artistic project and in terms of literature itself. So the first book that I'm going to do screen share, so you just forgive me if I disappear for a while. So this is the last novel that I wrote. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Exquisite
yeah, I'm
cadavers.
seeing.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people are coming. Okay, is this better? Is my screen clear? Oh
Yes,
no,
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
another. No, that's not the right screen. Wait a second. Yeah, that's the better screen. Okay. Give me a second. Sorry, yeah. Oh, so yeah. So, for instance, I mean, like trying to talk about how do you um how do you look at work itself? Just a little bit. Okay. Um, so this is a novel where I was trying to look into this question of how does uh, how does life influence art? Or how is it possible for us to actually keep the two separate? And the other broader question is that to explore how much of your life becomes art. I mean, like if some of art is autobiographical, then where does your art come into that? And uh, I think it was particularly something else, which is also quite interesting for me to write about, which I'll try to explain, is that when this book was written, I was living in the US, um, and I observed something which is very interesting in terms of the perception of writers from what is called the global South, or, less unpleasantly called the third world. And so one of those things is that it doesn't matter what we create as literature, it doesn't matter what we share as literature. There's always a tendency to not foreground the literary aspect of writers from the global south. And instead of that, to foreground or to give importance to the fact that we are writing about quote unquote suffering, or we are writing about a lot of it becomes like a diary, or like it's about your experience. And whereas I think there is this slight disconnect in terms of literary review and criticism, where the artistic merits of your work are somehow subsumed by the fact that you're writing political things. And in my opinion, or my understanding of really good literature, is that it has to often be a very good combination of the two. That it has to contain very strong artistic elements, and at the same time, it should have very strong politics behind it. So what I tried to do with this book was to can you see the way the novel is laid out? Hello, can I hear anyone? Hello. Um, am I audible? Is anyone able to hear me or talk to me? Hello. Um.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Sorry. I got all the. Oh, fine.
Technically,
Sorry.
we got delayed.
So,
Sorry.
oh, okay, fine. So, okay, this is the first chapter, and this is called Home Objects. And one of the things that it actually does here is that you see on the left the kind of thing that's happening in my life. So it's like it says, it starts with on a sunny day in late March in Glasgow. We rushed to the museum with our screaming toddler. Our train back to London is in less than a hour. We decided to kill time. The all glass lip shares their excitement. It takes us all the way up, all the way down, up again, tripping on one of the floors. We get up, we get out. So here it starts talking about, my very particular story. And on the right-hand side page, if you can see where the pointer is, um, I'm trying to look at, and so in this museum, it talks about the particular movie that I'm watching on loop, and it's called Absence, She Said. And one of those things is that that it's a collaborative movie between two different people. And when I see this movie, one is a person called Breda Behan, and the other is Horvatic. And when I see this movie between these two artistic collaborators, I think that, okay, in the novel that I'm going to write, somebody is going to be a filmmaker. They're going to be an immigrant filmmaker. And the other character I decided has to be English because, at that time, it's happening in Glasgow and, I'm still in United Kingdom. So I want this character to be English. So on the way home, and this is where it continues, on the way home, I make my grand announcement. My new novel will be partly set in London. And then my partner's asking me, is it about us? So I said, no. Is it based on us? And then I say, no, maybe. And then he asked me, where in London? And then I say, where we lived before, generic London gentrified. And then he asked, is there something about time we invented the first mojito for Walthamstow? That used to be the neighborhood we lived in. And I say, no. Then he asked me, is it political? And I say, no, love, it's very domestic. And having gone there, so this is the kind of, interesting opening conversation that, we have in life, or the moment at which I decide that, okay, this is going to be the characters in my novel. Somebody is English, based in London. The other person is an immigrant filmmaker. They're based in London. And when a partner asked me, is it going to be a political novel? I'm like, no, it's really domestic. So when I do start writing this novel, it starts in a scene of absolute domesticity. So it's called Home Objects. And it starts something like, nothing hides mutual disdain as well as a marriage. Nothing hides a marriage in shambles as well as a spruced up orderly home. Stacked ceramic coffee mugs do not sneak up and tell others the stories of unclasped hands. Clean linen sheets in their fail-safe lavender and citrus geometry are crisply deceptive. And I can read, but I just want to go back and do the narrative part of it. Um, and so I think it's very interesting because this was being written in real time. So you can see again here plates, hand painted bowls, fancy wine glasses, empty beer bottles need to be knocked out of their inertia, shaken up, smashed. Fragility as a force field does not allow itself to be perturbed. The clattering waits in the wings, romps around within four walls, impatient to join the checkerboard of grayscale cityscapes, wills itself to collapse into familiar rhythm. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. So this is one of this, like we're talking about the boundaries of literature. We're talking about, how do you unbind, how about voices being unbound? And this is one of the ways in which I really was doing this as an artist experiment. For me, it was less about the writing of, just fiction per se, as opposed to this artistic experiment of trying to at every stage document the things in life and how it kind of propels the writing of fiction. um, and again you see this is the second chapter. The way it goes here is that as soon as I put my characters within a couple and together in the same room, I regret my decision. Enclosed spaces call for quarrels. I feel the sudden urge to push them outdoors. And this is something that I think as a writer, like in my process. And then now, how does the fiction reflect this? Because the characters in the novel are not, me. It's two people who created. So and now I also decided that I have to put them out of doors. I have to put them somewhere. So again, it's a very English landscape. This says the dullness of the landscape. Sorry for my puppy barking. The dullness of the landscape lends to the despair. The cold sea, hunger to dissolve everything, even and especially marriages, seasons the wounded, bleeding hearts with the sting of her unforgiving salt. Waves, drained of energy, expend the last of their life force in hurtling towards the shore and spreading themselves into inconsequence of the gravelly beach. Life grows more intricate under this heavy grayness. Um, and so, I mean, for me, this this and then I try to do this through the book, and I'm not going to, of course, spend my time explaining the book itself, but I just wanted to show this to you as an example of what happens when, we try to push the boundaries of what fiction is supposed to do. Fiction is supposed to tell you a story, but often this kind of fiction comes from, our own example of life. It comes from our own, understanding of what we go through. And so for me, it was quite interesting to, do this kind of work, so that's one of those things I really wanted to share with you. And so this is how the rest of the book goes. And this is going to be published in India next year. It's already published elsewhere. Okay, 1 second. Now I'm just going to show myself. Oh my God, where am I? Stop sharing. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being this patient with me. Wait a second, where's the screen? Okay. Thank you for your patience. So this is what I did with one book, and it's really a very interesting example because this was written from, I think, about March or April, and it went on until December. And it really is a very lifetime work of, comparing what is going on. And it's really also interesting for me as a writer, because around sometime in October or September, one of my friend gets arrested in India. And then I get this information when I'm in New York at the time. And I'm teaching, and I have to. This starts affecting me, and it's not a very open. It doesn't affect me that openly, but invariably it starts going into the character I've created. So, like this man that I've created, his name is Karim. He's a filmmaker from Tunisia, and this woman is Maya, and she's like a layout artist in a popular newspaper. And once this trouble that's brewing back home, friends going to jail in India, in Delhi, starts reaching me, the nature of the book starts turning political, and it's very interesting because, this is not just an experiment for others. There's also an experiment for me, primarily to see, how does your life affect fiction, and invariably, how does political stress work on an artist? And the artist in this couple is Karim. And Karim's brother gets taken up for interrogation or question back home in Tunis. And he hears news of that. And Karim as a character in this book is forced to take a decision. And part of his decision is that, does he leave his country? Does he leave the comfort of London? Or does he go back to Tunis? Or does he stay here, and does he do work? And also, this was like one of the political things about this book. The other thing, so even if you start to say, and start to believe that, okay, I'm writing a very domestic work, it's going to be just about a couple and the relationship, but then you realize that politics enters every aspect of life, like, and it starts influencing your life, but also your writing. And I think one of those very other interesting things that happened around this time, this was 2018 when the book was being written, was we were also living in post-Brexit England. So the UK had decided to leave the European Union, and you could feel that stress. And especially, as a woman of color, brown person in the UK who is with a white person who is also European and not British or English, there was so much, like, it's not direct hostility, but it was very subtle hostility. So to write about that kind of experience, and to also project it on your characters, because a lot of time writers do that, right? Like, you start projecting what happens in your life and the characters, so to project it on your characters who are also a mixed race couple, and how they navigate being a mixed race couple. I think that was a part of this experiment. So I just wanted to share or explain this to you, because a lot of time people come and ask me. I think last month also in another SRM college, there was a student, she may or may not be here today, who said she's trying to write how the biography is linked to the art. And I don't think it's a lot of the times linked, but especially this one book of mine, I really try to really combine them and present them and to see how it works, to see how to break that format, to break the page. Because when we read a novel, when we consume fiction, it's always the assumption that this is a made-up story. And for somebody to actually, like, it's like opening a screen and saying, okay, but this is the made-up story that you're consuming, but this is the story of the life that's happening. This is the story of the life that's writing the story. And how do you want to learn about it? How do you want to relate to it? So that's this book. How much more time do I have to speak, ma'am?
Ma'am, you have time, ma'am. You can talk.
Yeah, I have time. No, roughly how long, ma'am?
Half an hour.
I have another half an hour. Okay, no, I want to know if I can go to another book, or if I chat to wrap up and take. Do we have
Yeah,
questions
sure,
right
ma'am.
now,
Sure,
or
ma'am.
the questions will come at the end of my talk?
Yes, ma'am. Last 10 minutes we will have session.
Okay, yeah,
Participants
okay,
will
I'll
have
speak. Okay.
participants will use the chat box.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So I'll come back and I'll take the questions. So I'll speak for some more time. So so coming to that book, for instance, so this chapter called what I call, you have parallel lines, um, and you really say, okay, so sorry, uh, wait a second. This something I'm looking for. Okay, so this, for example, is an example. I was talking about Brexit and what is happening here, and how people are actually dealing with racism. So what you see in the column is about. See, when I start this book, the news cycle runs around the Windrush generation being deported, the hostile environment policy of the Home Office, Meghan Markle marrying the prince. By the time I near completion of the manuscript, the headlines are about the jihadi bride who wants to have her baby in Britain at the expense of the public taxpayer. I feel seen. So that's about the Shamima Begum case. Having started this family with a European in the midst of a nail biting of the nail biting over Brexit, I resist and then yield to the urge to reflect on the interracial nature of the imaginary fictional couple I'm writing about. In my non-novel writing life, I'm also researching Jayabin Desai and the Granvik strike. So much churning infiltrates my story. To provide historical contrast to the Karim Maya relationship in the present climate, I make Maya of mixed race background herself, but I let a lot of the ambiguity stay. Her mother could have been a Jamaican youngster who came to work for the NHS, or she could have been a first generation sari clad South Asian immigrant striking for better working conditions in her factory. Maya knows her exact ethnic composition. She has possibly told Karim too, and that's all that matters. The rest of us can be content with Google sociology. The I'm feeling lucky option takes me to this result, a blow by blow account of a particular episode on mixed marriages of a British television show popular in its time. And so this is the background of the couple, and this is the background in which I'm writing. It's Brexit, it's the marriage of African American women with Prince Harry. It's the time of Shamima Begum or Isis Bride. It's all of this happening, and so how does this reflect itself in the story? So Maya hears him out through the complaining small hours and many complaining nights. She senses the stress taking its toll, yet she cannot bring herself to see eye to eye. His grievances are legitimate. His tactic is fucking flawed. I mean, here she's talking about her partner Kareem, right? So, for instance, she says, no. She feels that he must feel the suggestion subverted. Don't complain, she tells him, it's not a British value. Make a movie that values in your predicament, self-referential, metafictional, plunging the personal, immersed in the political, whatever you choose to call it. You don't have to play to the stereotype. They want you to interrogate your identity. Use that as a weapon to interrogate them. unapologetic, seamless navel gazing, dress it up in the cloak of high art. Um, and because he's Arab, and the story, he's a Tunisian, so he's Arab, and again, it's one thing being Asian from India, another thing, being seen as an Arab person, especially in a very Islamophobic West. Like, for instance, you have this scene here where they they make light of what is handed to them. Kareem jokes of leaving his camel tied by the door. Maya mentions Maya mentions a harem of other wives. Kareem says Maya is taking belly dancing lessons. Maya says Kareem spends his time at home making pressure cooker bombs. They are the only ones laughing. The problem with jokes is that not everyone is allowed to make them, and not everyone is obliged to find them funny. And so this is the kind of examples of how political climate, the thing in which the background in which you're writing things and how it starts actually affecting your own fiction. How do I stop sharing? No, I'm available. Okay, that's good. So this is about exquisite cadavers and the experiment that I did with this novel. But all of my work in general, all of my fiction and poetry has often tried to be as experimental as possible. In which for me it's so very important that I get the form right. And for me, um the content often decides the form. So this is the story that I want to write, and then it takes a certain form, and the form is not often the most predictable form for a story. And I'll also give some small examples from my first novel, and then I'll open it to questions for all of you. Uh, so I'm going to go and do another screen share now. Sorry. Is it sounding very seminary?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
We're
Okay,
pleased to
it's okay. You're
listen.
not suffering. You're not suffering or anything. Okay.
Not at
Okay,
all.
that's
We are
fine.
pleased to listen to you, ma'am.
Okay, so what I did, this is my first novel. This took me a long time to write. Um, I was working on this book for at least 7 years, including many visits to Venmani. So this book is about the massacre of 44 Dalit men, women, and children who are from families of landless agricultural laborers, and who are striking for higher wages. And so this book is called The Gypsy Goddess. It was published in 2014, like, yeah, 10 years ago. And the book takes place in the village of Venmani. And what I did with language is quite interesting here, because I believe that, to write a novel, this book goes through, okay, these are the chapters of the book. That's a map. So these are the chapters in this book. There are 14 chapters. But what is quite interesting is that every chapter has a different perspective, and the perspective keeps shifting constantly. And the reason that I wanted to do this is that to capture a story, like, an entire village of people being killed like that, and they were all locked up in a hut and, burned to death. And what is the reason that the landlords killed them is because they were basically striking for higher wages, and, they wanted to be organized as communists. Mm, So, and the first, I will take some examples and show you. I cannot do the whole book, obviously, in this time. So, some time. Okay. Um, okay, so the thing is that the communists here are, on the side of the people. They're organizing the people and so on. And on the other side are the landlords. And okay, so when I had to write this story, for instance, I was trying to say, show how, we assume when we talk about language, we often assume that language is this very neutral thing. We think that when everybody uses language, we think, okay, language belongs to everyone, English belongs to everyone, all the words belong to everyone. So we're more or less, using language. We assume that it's neutral, but actually it's not neutral, because what happens is when some people use some types of language, they basically are subverting meaning, they're subverting systems, they're trying to they're trying to use this the weapon of language for their own purposes. And so the book starts with a letter from someone called Gopalakrishna Naidu, who basically in the end of the book perpetuates the massacre. And the book is actually, the letter is addressed to the chief minister of Madras at the time, which is Annadurai. And the way it says that you see the way the language uses, it's with a heavy heart. I bring to your attention about the mischievous politics that has gripped the coolies. And the way it talks is, he says that his life is under threat. The party leaders have, tried to send away their henchmen. So we have to protect ourselves from routine blackmail. We have to protect ourselves from these misguided attacks. And that, we want to the Honorable Chief Minister should interfere in this grave matter and take necessary steps to restore the lost confidence of the terror stricken landowners. So, what is happening is that the people who actually are going to perpetrate the crime, the people who are actually going to do the evil, who are going to employ violence, the book starts with them pretending that they are the victims, that they are the ones who are frightened, they are the ones who are at the receiving end of terror. And I felt that when language is such a fake construct, that language actually is deliberately deployed in order to tell lies to further this kind of agenda, it becomes so important to reveal a language for what it is. And so this book has a lot of notes. Wait a second, can I see that? Okay, that's better. Okay, so and I'll show you some more examples of what I try to do with language here. In this book, as I said to you, every chapter is different. With it also contains things like interview with the writer. So there's no third wall. So it also contains, I think, a Marxist Party pamphlet. Let's come to this. Okay. See, this is the Marxist Party pamphlet. And I really wanted to also include this kind of thing because we're talking about 1968. We're talking about, the 1940s and 50s. It's a very interesting historical period in Delta, in Tamil Nadu, because that's the period when the communists were working so seriously in what is, undivided Tanjavur, what can be today's Ramanathapuram, Tanjore, Pudukkottai, Sivaganga, and all of this basically Delta district, and trying to organize workers. And so what actually happens there is that we are trying to talk about how do communists use their language. So you see here they're talking about the murder of a comrade, Sikkal Patrasamy, in broad daylight on 15th November. So it concerns everyone, and they talk about how landlords killed him on the day of the agricultural strike in order to spread terror among peasants. And then, the way it's always written is about, they'll always say that, you see, it's not people's history is not a history that's available in police record or the newspaper. It's not a history that textbooks will teach. It's not a history that will catch the attention of petty bourgeois writers, but it's a history that we must learn, a history that will set us free, a history that we can harvest. So the register of language that's used, let's say, by the people who organize, workers who organize the landless, it's really very interesting, and very opposite is very much in opposition to the kind of language that's used by the Paddy Producers Association. And I also want to come a little bit downwards to 1 second. Okay, so and this chapter is really interesting. This one called Expression of Countenance, and this is where um, the police are actually writing up. The police are getting the dead bodies, the bodies of the 44 people who have died or burned, have been burned to death by the landlords. And how does the system? I mean, for me, this was when I was going through all the records, the court documents and the police records, and I saw this document. It was really shocking because how does the police actually look at these people? And The police, this is how they write about people, right? Male, age not known, nobody can identify body. Marital status not known, protruding tongue, body burnt below the hip, hand flexed at the elbow, blackened blood all over the body. They're writing about someone called Jyoti, aged about 10 years, daughter of Munian, Harijan, height 3 feet, not married, roughly three-fourths of her body has burnt, with the exception of the left side of face and hair. And then there are bodies who are like charred, corpse of female child, height 1 feet 2 inches, marital status not known, 1 inch long hair, legs are cooked and hanging apart, abdomen has burst, visible female genitalia. And so you think that even you look at something like this, like you look at this is how the state actually is processing death. This is how state is processing a tragedy. And this is how the state dehumanizes its victims. I mean, this is very essential in terms of, making a list of the dead, making them as exhibits. But at the same time, it kind of shows to you that, the state at this point is absolutely like stopped caring, right? See, charred human corpse, skull and skeleton remain, other details not known. Charred skeleton belongs to human, other details not known. Charred human corpse with only skull and bones, other details not known. Burnt male corpse, presence of male genitalia, body has charred beyond identification. And I think at some point when we go through what is actually happening, we realize that the system has given up on trying to do any justice to these people, like even before anything starts. And for me, it was really important to write about this, write and show this, because it's much more easy to write with a single narrator, write the whole story, but it's very radical, and you may not get the exact same type of readership that and it's not the most accessible book if you write, you write like this. But when you write like this, you kind of show people, you kind of document, you kind of allow everyone to reflect on what is happening with language, what is language being used to, how is language being deployed in order to uphold the status quo, in order for the state to dehumanize victims of gross violence. And I think that's really what I think I want to do as a writer, is to show us what is being done to language, because literature is one thing, but at the heart of it, how does language get used? Because I think the minute we become hyper aware of the ways in which language is used, then we can do two things which are very interesting. One is that we can use the same language to do the kind of counter politics, to do the kind of powerful, radical, revolutionary politics that's required of us, so that talk about people's concern. But the other thing is that we don't buy into corporate language, we don't buy into states' use of language, and we become vigilant. And I think these are quite interesting things. Um, so this is again quite an interesting chapter, because in this chapter, this is towards the end, and this chapter is written like with the we, like the entire village is trying to write the story of what they have gone through. And because when I wrote this book, again, for me it was so important that we break away from the idea that the novel is the is about an individual story, or centers an individual. For me, the hero of the novel was not a singular protagonist. The village was the protagonist of the novel. So that's how this book went. So again, this is one of the what you can call pushing the pushing the frontier of telling a story. And it takes like 100 to 200 300 decisions that you have to keep constantly making to try and do something, out of the blue. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'll take your questions now. Is that good? Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I
Thank
request
you.
participants, if anyone having any questions, you can write it in the chat box. The next 5 minutes, we will have feedback session.
Okay, somebody's asking me they already paid 1,000 rupees how to publish the paper, but I don't know how
No,
to
ma'am. That's for us. No, that I have
Okay,
requested him not to do that.
okay. There's something else. Someone asked the question. Wait a second. Okay, Jasleen Kaur has a question. What's the title? Okay, so there's a game in French called translates into exquisite cadavers. So basically what you do is that you can divide, let's say, a piece of paper into three like this, right? So one person draws the head. Let's say I draw the head of a horse, and in the second portion, I pass it to somebody. They draw a body, and the third person draws the legs. And these are called exquisite corpses because nobody knows what the previous person drew. So the story goes like that. Like it's it's what they call exquisite cadaver, or the exquisite corpse, is that you have three different parts. So this is used to be a game, but it is also found by the surrealist of those time. So as a writing technique or as a storytelling technique, it's like one thing leads to the other and not necessarily connected. And I thought, when I write a book like this, I know, a project like this, where, I know that I'm starting based on what's happening with my life, and I'm going to tweak the characters that I'm projecting from my life as the story goes. So yeah, it was not really a clear-cut plot-rich story, because how would I know what's going to happen in the coming months? So I think I thought that this experiment, was a little bit like Exquisite Cadavers as an experiment. So that's the title. It's another question. Should I read the question? From Prasad Kumar, in Exquisite Cadavers, you employ a fragmented narrative style that intertwines personal and political layers, blending fiction with autobiographical undertones. It sounds like ChatGPT. Would you explore on how this innovative structure challenges conventional storytelling? Oh, that's what I have done all this time, my dear. Mm. Yeah, because I think conventional storytelling allows you to. It's quite an interesting question, because what happens in conventional storytelling is that you enter this book and you are aware that, okay, this is a political text, this is how it's going to play out. But in this book, you really realize that, it starts with a very simple love story, a domestic story of these two people who may be having their own tensions. And then the politics starts, getting into it. And it's also very interesting to see how it does, because this politics starts getting reflected as I go through more and more political stuff around my life, like, what it means to live in Brexit Britain, what it means to have a friend arrested and, called an urban exile, or arrested on the UAPA. And so the more these changes happen in my life, and then I project it on the characters. So I think it's like a real time um view, like into an artist studio. You just really know what's happening, and you know how the artist is getting to that point. So that's what is happening.
There is another question here.
Yeah.
Can I read? In
Yes, yeah.
Exquisite Cadavers, the dual narrative structure, a fictional story on one side and your notes on the other, create a unique reading experience. What inspired this unconventional format, and how do you think it reshapes and readers' engagement with the themes of identity, censorship, and political resistance?
Um, no, I think that this kind of format actually possibly is, from film actually, right? Like in films, you often especially with experimental films, you have this idea that, it's like, how do people shoot a documentary? You have them showing like the BTS, right? In cinema, it's a big concept. So they release the book, and then they release the film, and then they also release BTS, like, behind the scenes. This is what happened. This is what is happening. And so we all, at some point, we are all like so interested, and also behind the scenes, we want to see how they're hanging out, what fun they're having, and even music albums use this format, right? Like, we hear the song, but we also see the BTS, like, for instance, this very why this color very deep. It's a lot of it is like, actually, we kind of see the song as it's getting done. We don't only see the final product. And I think a little bit of this is from that kind of idea, that how do we show the behind the scenes in the scene itself? And so I think, yeah, it's possibly inspired by a lot of this, a little bit of pop culture, but also a little bit of, uh, documentary films. And so yeah, the inspiration is also from artists, because artists are from doing this kind of experiment. For instance, this is an artist called Sophie Kahl. Sophie Kahl does this kind of, she takes a project and then she documents every stage of the project. So, and then she makes books out of them. So yeah, it's from all of this. So I think once I think she got somebody to, stalk her, how she was stalking people, or it's a lot of these weird kind of experiments that get to this book. So And how do you think it reshapes the reader's engagement? Oh, how does the reader read? And that's the whole thing. Like at this point, how does the reader read? Uh, I think the reader reads in a state of suspension, right? The read, and especially for readers like all of you are professors of English, you're like always reading and projecting what the author was thinking, projecting what the author was doing, and projecting. But sometimes it's very challenging, but also very interesting to know what the author was thinking and why they created that, and which is in the book itself. You don't need another interview to get there. And for in terms of censorship on political assistance, that's quite interesting because um, I think it's when you talk about censorship, a lot of people stop writing. Like the first stage of censorship is actually self-censorship. People stop writing, but the other stage of censorship is that you because everything becomes allegorical or metaphorical. You don't exactly say what you're trying to say. So this is a kind of fiction that breaks with that tradition. It's like, okay, this is happening, and I'm going to write about what is happening. And the problem is, I think it's quite interesting to also realize that, when we live in a country, that these problems are not limited to us, that around the world, there are people who are fighting oppressive regimes, like, people who are, asking for regime change, people who are asking for democracy, people who are asking for more rights, people who are asking for the freedom of expression. And therefore, a story like this actually tells you that all of these struggles are, maybe they're not directly interconnected, but at least they're very similar to each other.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. There is another question by Dr. Rex Smart. Can you share few insights on travelogues in connection with the way of contemporary narratives?
Oh, there's a very interesting book that's going to come out. No, I think travelogues are quite interesting. I mean, right from Joseph Brodsky's book on visiting Venice, right? Um, and I think that, yeah, they are quite, and there's also, I think, a new trend of, writing what you call site-specific literature. So, site-specific literature is not just about travelogue. It's a little bit like, I go to Dharmapuri where, in 2012, 300 homes of Dalit people were burnt because of an intercaste marriage. And then you write very specifically a literature that's connected with that place, or you visit the site of the Delhi riots and you write about it. And I think this is not very happy travel writing. This is not saying that, I give a 5-star review on Make My Trip or Booking.com. I think this is the kind of travel where you try to write about what is happening from that place, from actually visiting that place. And I think it's quite, I think Valeria Lucelli did that with her novel, right? The Lost Children Archive. Please do look it up. It's quite interesting because she starts with a road trip around America that she's taking with her children. And it really explores all these concepts of, what is belonging, who is a citizen, as well as, all the experiences that come from cross-country travel. So, yeah, I think this is a very good thing, but I don't think it's not the topic that I'm most suitable to talk about because I prepared to talk about my own work. Um,
And there is one interesting question from Dr. Sumati Narayan. I would like to know what's your next book on?
oh, okay. Okay, I'll take that as the last question. What's my next book on? Okay, my next book will be announced in January. It's coming out in 26. Okay, so I have two next books. So one is a small book. I can give you a link. Give me a second. Sorry. Sorry. So my next book is quite a short book, and it's about this very idea of what do we do with art? Like, does art have to get returned? And also, how do we look at art and how do we process art? Um, so this is the one. It's a short, small book, and this is out next year from this is distributed by the University of Chicago Press. Um, but this is for nonfiction, those who likes very intellectual essays. I have a proper book of a novel coming out in 26. So this is again the world of fiction, right? It takes a lot of time. So I started writing this book in 2020. I finished it this May, and then it's going to take 1 year of publication, so it should be out in 26. It's a lot about, yeah, it's what we call quote unquote incel culture, if you're aware of that, and how does incel culture mix with the right wing? How does it look at women's rights, and what does it mean to be women who is, having to negotiate incel culture? So that's what it's about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your patience and answering all the questions. Actually, this is for me personally, I have just known the meaning of surrealism. Today only I felt it. Okay, on seeing you on the screen, it's very happy, ma'am. And now I introduce my colleague, Mrs. Casey Maitli, for the conference insights. Thank you.
Before that, let me give my heartfelt thanks to Meena Kandasamy ma'am for accepting our invitation and joining us today for this valedictory. It's really wonderful to listen to you. We have had a dream that because we had your poems by our syllabus in SRM University, and today our dream has come true that you have joined with us, and our students they might have listened it. They might have enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being
Thank you,
with
ma'am.
us.
Thank you.
It's my personal thanks to you and my department. Heartfelt thanks to you and for joining us. Thank you, ma'am. And over to Casey McLean.
Thank you, Kavita ma'am. Hi, Kandasamy ma'am. Meena Kandaswamy ma'am. Happy to be connected with you. And I would like to share the conference insights. The two-day international hybrid conference titled Voices Unbound, Exploring New Frontiers in English Language, Literature and Psychology, organized by the Department of English and Other Foreign Languages and Department of Psychology, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Ramapuram, showcased remarkable participation and engagement across diverse academic and geographical spheres. The conference served as a platform for scholars, researchers, and practitioners to engage in meaningful discussions and share innovative ideas. It recorded 245 registrations, quite a significant number of participation and contribution to the fresh discourses on the interdisciplinary fields. A total number of 191 online and 29 offline registrations were received for presentations. Papers were presented by participants from far across the country and also from international presenters as well. Apart from the presenters from across the globe, SRM IST also contributed 31 presentations. The conference attracted 24 online and 5 offline registrations in the participation-only category. Both online and offline sessions were conducted, in which 2 offline sessions and 7 online sessions for presentation happened on day 1 and 10 online sessions on day 2. There were 19 national session chairs, including plenary talks, and 1 international session chair who shared their expertise and insights into the various realms of literature, language, and psychology. The conference featured 2 national and 1 international keynote speakers as well. Engagement metrics included 455 YouTube views on day 1 and 125 registrations for publication. The event fostered a vibrant exchange of ideas, promoting academic collaboration and innovation across borders. We feel greatly honored and privileged by the overwhelming responses and intellectual contributions, adding novelty and diversity to the fields of language, literature, and psychology. Hope to get connected with you all again in future for more engaging discourses. Do keep up the spirit, keep learning, and thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I would like to call upon Dr. Agalya V.T. Raj for a word of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Department of English and Other Foreign Languages, Department of Psychology at SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Ramapuram, it's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks for the successful 2 days International Hybrid Conference on Voices Unbound,
Exploring New Frontiers in Language, Literature, and Psychology, scheduled for December 12th and 13th, 2024. Firstly, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our chief patrons, Dr. R. Shivakumar, Chairman, Mr. S. Niranjan, Co-Chairman, Dr. N. Sethuraman, Chief Director, Dr. K.V. Narayanan, Associate Director, Dr. C. Sundar, Dean, and Dr. J. Dileepan, Vice Principal, for their visionary leadership and continuous support in nurturing academic excellence and providing a platform to explore multidisciplinary perspectives. Your unwavering encouragement has set the tone for the successful conduct of the 2 days international conference. I would like to thank the distinguished resource persons and keynote speakers, Dr. Poonam Niham Chahai from Ranchi University, Dr. Rajesh Kumar from IIT Madras, Dr. K. Shanti Chitra from SRM Katangalathur, Dr. Mahendran from Malaysia, Dr. Thomas Jalen from Pennsylvania, Dr. Poshley from Tennessee, and Meena Kandaswamy, the acclaimed poet and actress. Your willingness to contribute your expertise to this conference has added immense value and global appeal. A special thanks to our head of the department, Dr. T. Sridevi, for your guidance and motivation. Your leadership inspires us to strive for excellence in our academic pursuits. My gratitude extends to the conveners, co-conveners, organizing secretary members, and all the department faculty members of their support. A big thanks you to all the participants and delegates whose enthusiasm and support bring a life to such academic gathering. Diverse range of themes from literature, linguistics to psychology showcase and reflects the multidisciplinary spirit we aim to blossom. Finally, we look forward to see you all again for the next event as we continue the journey of learning and growth. Thank you once again. Have a phenomenal day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our thanks to each and everyone being here, joining here today. Our thanks to all the participants who have joined and made the event more and more successful from yesterday to today. This 2-day international conference became a wonderful, successful thing only because of our participants and panel members, our juries, everyone. Our thanks to each and everyone being here behind this. Thank you all. Thank you all. We hope we all will meet again, once again in new conference. Thank you all. Our special thanks and mention to our host today, Meena Kandaswamy. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for joining today, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. Thanks to everyone. Yeah, it's lovely to
Thanks
be
to.
with you.
Thank you,
Same
ma'am.
from the side, ma'am. Thank you.